Oi, oi! Hello and welcome to another Antepost Insight video. I did the last one in December. Since then, obviously, Jamie and Daryl and I had gone through the races at the festival with our thoughts on it. That was done after the Christmas stuff, so a bit of a reaction to that. So, would have been like an Antepost Insight thing. We gave you our suggested bets or where our heads were at. I feel like now's a reasonable time, given that we've got Dublin Racing Festival coming up in February. We've also got Trials Day coming up this weekend. And lots of things are going to start being published. Lots of people are going to start putting content out there. I'm not saying that you're going to want to swerve away from my stuff, but the nearer we get to it, while it still is anti-post punting, it's going to be less of an anti-post sort of angle into things. So, with that in mind, some bookmakers may decide to start going non-run and no bet on more than just the championship races. And also with that in mind, I feel like a lot of races have already taken shape. So we'll skim through these. I'm going to try and do this a lot quicker than I have done for other ones because they have been quite long. Obviously, I talked about the horses that I fancied in each division and in each race in those previews. So go back and check those out if you're really, really specifically interested. But I will still reiterate my thoughts in each of the races. I just don't want to deliberate on it too much. We have got Ballymore, Supreme, and Albert Bartlett and Triumph entries today, so we'll find out about those probably published tomorrow. You'll notice Betfair markets will start to be suspended. Don't get paranoid and think horses have had something wrong with them. It is just the way that it is. Then we've got a couple of weeks after this until some more stuff happens, maybe Mares Chase, Mares Novice. Then it'll be handicaps, that'll be 20 something of February, 22nd of February maybe. And then we've got the bumper Hunter's Chase and one other that comes out at the end. But basically, the entries are starting to come out. So you got until like end of February until we get the handicap entries actually fully out. So I know people will start thinking about those races, but you've still got time. And I know people don't want to miss prices, but again, you've still got time. So we'll look at the Supreme. Again, go back and watch those previews if you want to see specifics about the race. But as it stood, Constitution Hill was the one that we fancied. The three of us, Jamie, Daryl, and I, of the ones that were top of the market back then. That was Constitution Hill, John Bond, and Sir Gerhard. Those thought processes haven't changed of that trio. Constitution Hill was ahead, and you can see from the market that's the way that it stands. Now, Dysart Dynamo, I fancied him for this race. I put him up in that Supreme preview. I couldn't believe the price that he was then. It just seemed similarly disrespectful that maybe it's because it's owner breeder, all those sort of things, but I thought he was the supreme horse anyway. I've mentioned in that video I don't understand why people were thinking he'd go to a Ballymore. So if anyone can make a solid case for why Dysart Dynamo would have been better suited to Ballymore than Supreme, feel free to mention that in the comments. But it's irrelevant. We're all allowed different views. People have different processing bits of it with what goes on. And obviously we never know where horses are going to go, especially with Willie Mullins. But Supreme for me, I think Dysart Dynamo is a monster. Only tiny thing is does lug his head to the right in that Moscow Flyer, which obviously the preview before was before that race, so I wouldn't have seen that. But I mean, Bob lugged that way a tiny bit as well himself, so Bob was fine at Cheltenham. Like, it wouldn't be enough to put me off. He has only gone right-handed, so we have got the left-handed question argument. Constitution Hill would be the same. But Dysart Dynamo, I think looks pretty good, to be honest with you. And I just love how I don't think he ever really got into the top gear in that Moscow Flyer, and he just absolutely annihilated some of the other horses. Now, the pace that he's going to go at, lots of people will talk about how it's going to set it up for other horses in the race, like it may favour some other ones in there, and it may well do. Some of them may want a stronger pace to aim at, but often you can see horses that go off the front end do tend to do well in a Supreme, and I just can't see him catching Dysart Dynamo. So he's the strongest one that I'd fancy in here. There isn't really anything at bigger prices that would really lure me in, but we are going to get those entries coming in. I mean, lots of bookies would have suspended the market for this one, so right now is probably not the best time to be talking about the novice hurdles, but I'm going to skim through race by race just because I said I would. So the novices chases, I mean, the free races potentially look fairly obvious, I think, now at this point. We've got some short price favourites in there. I do still really like Fernie Hollow. I talked about this in the Arkle preview around about Christmas. He was 7-4, I think, still then, which I thought was monster value. Still 6-4 with Bet365. I still think 6-4 is a very good price for Fernie Hollow. Like, he will be, as far as I'm concerned, odds on when it comes to the day. He's got entries at the Dublin Racing Festival. I know people will talk about some of these novices have got entries in the big, like 2 mile, like the equivalent of the Champion Chase. Grenadine's going to go over there for Paul Nicholls. I don't see why Chacon Poussoir wouldn't run unless he's got some sort of niggly bit, so I don't see the novices going there. They may filter something in there, but I don't see why Willie Mullins would step a novice up into open company. But he doesn't do it that often. There is a hurdler that he did it with recently, but we'll not worry about that. So Fernie Hollow wins, I think, as far as I'm concerned. Similarly, like I said in that Arkle preview before, like I don't really see anything else coming out. There will be value hunters looking for each way bets and potentially each way bets without Fernie Hollow, which I can sort of understand, but as far as I'm stood at the moment, like I would rather wait and see. There may be angles for horses at bigger prices for an each-way play when we see differences in ground. But for me, Fernie still is the one. It's only those touch of the Champagne Fevers that worries me in the slightest. I do think his biggest threat is Blue Lord. Edwardstone does set a fairly decent standard for the British horses, but he is a second season novice. He is 8. He's got reasons to have been more forward than other horses so far this season. So we'll skip off from the Arkle and we'll have a quick skim through the Champion Hurdle. So Honeysuckle, obviously, deserved favourite and deserved short price. We're going to find out, hopefully, a lot more again, Dublin Racing Festival. Now, the way you've got to really, I suppose, think about this is Honeysuckle and Appreciate It, arguably, are the only 2 bets you could have in the Champion Hurdle at this moment. Now, I know people will say that I'm being harsh on Sharjah. Maybe I am, maybe I'm not. He's had opportunities to go and win a Champion Hurdle, hasn't he? I remember how many seasons we had with the new one where we kept saying, this is his year, this is his year. The Epatante Champion Hurdle where Sharjah couldn't win then was probably the weakest Champion Hurdle that he's faced. This isn't the deepest in terms of loads of competition, but I do think that Appreciate It could be good. And I do think that Honeysuckle is very good. That said, Appreciate It did only do it as a novice hurdler. He had issues before, which is why he was a 7-year-old running in the Supreme. He's obviously had a setback or an issue this season so far. So we will have to see how he comes back. But Willie knows how to train horses to do these bits. We just need to keep an eye on those final declarations of the Dublin Racing Festival, see how things pan out. Because again, there's talk about the ground at Dublin Racing Festival maybe being quicker than we'd like. I've looked at the sort of mid to long range forecast. I don't know how much water they're going to get in. We've seen meetings there before. We've had very small fields because the ground just wasn't good enough for trainers to trust their horses to run on there. So I'm sure it's something they are addressing, but the long and the short of it is I don't really think Willie's going to want to run Appreciate It on quick ground there. They probably won't run Sharjah there before Cheltenham. I'd imagine they go straight there. But then I'd wonder whether if the ground comes in, it may just change the complexity of things anyway. But let's look at it right. Realistically, if they ran against each other, most of us would suspect that Honeysuckle would beat Appreciate It anyway. So what's going to happen to the price? Probably she's not going to contract much further. It's going to depend in the manner that she does it. But a win's a win for Honeysuckle as far as I'm concerned. If Honeysuckle was to get beat by Appreciate It, then what's going to happen to the prices? Well, Honeysuckle might move out to go odds against. Appreciate It's going to shorten up, but you would still think that Honeysuckle would be favourite for the Champion Hurdle. And again, it depends in the manner that she gets beat. If it's a head bobber, you'd say it's reversible form, like an Energumene Shishkin. You would say that if she gets trounced, there was an excuse, there was a reason for it. But I think people that were going to back Appreciate It will have already had some money on. So from an Antepost perspective, don't really think the time to be backing him is now. I think the time is just to be watching the race to see how it pans out. The only one that could potentially be worth thinking about slightly is My Mate Mozzie's a horse that I really talked about. I didn't buy into how anyone could fancy him for Supreme early in the last summer, but by the by now it doesn't really matter. It's not like me saying that just to rub it in. Kind of rubbing it in. But Gavin Cromwell suggested that he will run him in the Champion Hurdle, or he could run him in the Champion Hurdle. He did retain an entry, so there's no supplementary fee for him, so it's not going to cost him a penny to run in there. But I think second in the Champion Hurdle will earn more than first in the Supreme. So when we look about that depth thing again, and we say, okay, Honeysuckle, Appreciate It, Sharjah, probably clear of a lot of other horses that are in here. Adagio's one at a price that I think people are thinking could run well, but let's just think of the Irishy type horses for now. We're talking about My Mate Mozzie as a potential angle bet. He's 66 to 1 poke. It is non run and no bet with bet 365. So if he doesn't come here, he goes Supreme, you get your money back. No chance in there. If he comes here, will he be a 66 to 1 poke in a Champion Hurdle when the field could cut up a bit? And let's imagine that Appreciate doesn't go here or anything like that. So not saying he's the best bet, but I just maybe from a value bit, maybe some people that like to shore up and get some cover in there, like a few people will have backed a few of these Champion Hurdlers. Maybe there's worse things to do than stick a couple of free quid on there. But that's really just trying to find a bet for the sake of talking about the race and finding a bet. Mare's Hurdle now. I did talk about Epatante in this when we did the preview, but she's got no entry in here. So I think it's probably good. Nicky Henderson didn't want to complicate things by having options for her. It's a tricky one. Burning Victory, I do still think has got a chance. People are saying that Concertista's going to stop chasing and come here. Like I don't understand that in the slightest, but I guess they're looking at it from a price perspective that she was so short for the race last year, whereas she's a big price now. I don't really see any shocks in this race, and I also don't see any real reason to be getting stuck into anything right now. I feel like as we get closer to the race, unless some horses get injured and we don't see them run, I think it's going to be a fairly competitive market right up until the day. Burning Victory is one that I like the look of, but again, I think ground could play into these ones. We're not talking about masses of difference in ability between lots of these horses. I think Daryl and Jamie were both kind of keen on Tell Me Something Go in this race. I know people are talking about Heaven Help Us with the headgear angle, that it's going to make a massive difference because they've raced without the headgear, but then what difference does it make? Like, run her in headgear and like she'll show her true colours. It's not like the mark affecting doesn't make a difference when it comes to a graded race like this. But if people are suggesting that they only necessarily have the desired effect if they're left off for a long period, I don't know why people are getting excited about a horse that is that. But maybe, don't want to say vulnerable, don't want to say quirky, but that's sort of dependent on an application of headgear after having loads of runs without it. Like, it seems like too significant a mindset thing to change. Don't like Heaven Help Us, basically. So yeah, Burning Victory would be one that was fairly like tempting, but I wouldn't be betting in the Mares' Hurdle. I think there's other races to get stuck into, and I know people like to build up a bit of a book. I was the same when I was doing Antepost betting. Like, you like to get some cover in certain races, but Mares' Hurdle for me would be one to definitely leave nearer the time, even for punters now. You've got your non-run or no bet that's not available for that race, so potentially looking at just throwing some quids away. 4 miler, I talked about Capodanno a few times, really. I don't know whether he is going to come here or not. He is still yet to qualify, so that's something to pay attention to when you're looking at Antepost bets for this race. Now, there's certain criteria. The main one is you just got to finish in the top 4 in a 3 mile chase, but you do have to have run in 3 races, I think it is. 3 chases, so you have to have the experience. That's something with Dickie Diver that got caught out where he didn't manage to qualify in time. I can double check it. I'm sure it's 3. Could be 2. I'm pretty sure it's 3. And you have to, like I say, finish top 4 in that 3 miler. So Capodanno will need to have a run over 3 miles. They talked about the race they've used previously, which is where they think Statler's going to go. No reason why he couldn't run a couple in there, but again, who knows with Willie. So Capodanno's like the price that he is, I think, because he's not Wise Guys one, but a few people have got him on the radar. I wasn't that disappointed with how he ran behind Bob Ollinger. So, again, Willie Mullins bingo, I guess, really, isn't it? So this would be one where, again, I think if people are talking about things at prices or trying to find a bit of value on something in there, one that I spoke to with Daryl not so long ago, so this wouldn't be me claiming this as my in, but we talked about Brayside, we talked about Jamie Codd, the fact that he doesn't often ride for Gigginstown in a national hunt chase. Brayside could be the sort of horse that he could jump onto because Brayside's too high to go in the Kim Muir, I think. So, like a semi-angle on there as one at a bit of a price. Pat's Fancy's one that's been talked about a bit recently in the media as being targeted at the race, so another one that could just end up being an obvious shortener. But I think as it is, a lot of people have found the ones that they like the look of. The ones towards the head of the market look like they deserve to be there. The big one will be where Capodanno ends up going. I mean, Umberton looks quite good. Statler looks quite good. Capodanno looks quite good. But then that'll be 3 Mullins horses in it. Now, I know he's not shy of running a couple in a race, but I don't know whether he'd shove 3 in here or whether he even has done before. On to Wednesday, the Ballymore Novices Hurdle. No one would disagree with me if I said this is the most open of the Novice Hurdle divisions. And you can see how Sir Gerhard there is shortening up. Now, I like to just make note of this, that Willie Mullins said at the beginning of the season, didn't he, that Kilcrit was the supreme horse and Sir Gerhard was probably going to be the Ballymore horse. Then with Kilcrit flopping, I don't know why everyone changed their mind on Sir Gerhard. Like he said, the trip he wants to run it over just because another horse is pish. Like the logic, again, doesn't apply to me. I don't know where people are getting this from. And I know, again, Willie Mullins could pick a trip and it might not be the right one for him, like he fancied Appreciate as a staying hurdler, but I don't see it. Sir Gerhard's not done anything to indicate that Supreme would have been more of a preference than the Ballymore when Willie Mullins said that the Ballymore was a preference over the Supreme. But he's going to run at the Dublin Race Festival at 2 mile. Everyone's already assuming that he's going to bolt up. Is that going to give Willie Mullins a headache? No, it probably won't, no. I think he could run 2 in the Supreme. That's not putting me off. But Dysart Dynamo is going to go for the Supreme. That's, as far as I'm concerned, an absolute fact. So Gerhard, we know this race is quite open. Potentially could be a good option for him to come here. The step up in trip, usually with a bumper horse, can help over time, same as when a juvenile goes up. But it is important to remember again that Sir Gerhard, like Kilcrit, was a 6-year-old bumper in last year. He's a 7-year-old this season. He was entitled to be that bit further forward than his bumper horses last season. So, I don't know. 7-year-olds, I think French Holly's the last one to win a 7-year-old in the Ballymore. We've had Champ that's come second. We've had a couple of like close calls with him, so it's not the be all and end all of like an age thing, but it is still a factor. The destination for some of these horses, I think, is a bit unknown. We did go through this race, and Jamie, despite being half cut, was making some fair points to some horses where they could go. And then Daryl talked about a few of them. I'd mentioned My Eye. That was before the Tolworths could be run, and obviously he didn't run there. He's gone and run since. He's run at Haydock in that Supreme trial. But I talked about that Supreme trial as well, maybe being a better marker towards a Ballymore anyway. I said about My Eye when he was 33s or 40s, I think. Then he is now 50. So I don't know. Dave Jennings put it in his Racing Post thing as well, so I reckon he's been watching my video, so thanks for that, Dave. But I think My Eye at a monster price, like there's always or often something at a big price that's worth keeping on side for a Ballymore, and I'm still sort of in that indices for it, so I don't know. It's still an open race. I think even when we get to the day, we may not have any real confidence in what goes anywhere. I think Sir Gerhard is ending up as short a price as he is almost by default, but Willie Mullins did say at the start of the season it was a race that was going to come for, and I know a lot of you liked him because he won the bumper last year, so you're probably already on. As it stands at the moment, I'd just be watching what's going on with the entries, especially because they're going to be coming out in the next couple of days. But I like, if Might High does hold an entry in this, I'd still be keen to get him on my slips if you guys haven't done already. Not that I have, because no Antepost. Festival Novices Chase, essentially the RSA in it. There is obviously talk about Galloping de Champs and where he's going to go, and could he go Turners, and Bob Oninger would be more likely to avoid him or not. I mean, it could happen, couldn't it? But they've talked about him being in a Dom Poli mode and mould and all those sorts of things. So like the likelihood is this is the trip for him to go in there. Do I think he's terrified of Brave Man's Game? Not really. Do I think he'd be terrified of a Hoy Senior? Not particularly, but I do think it's a decent enough race, and I think Galloping de Champs is versatile enough. So he was 7-1 Antepost fab for this. He's plenty short enough now. Again, I'm sure plenty of people have got him in there. You can see Capodanno's in here, a little bit short on the National Hunt Chase, and across the bookies the prices are sort of split. So he's a horse that could potentially go anywhere. Jungle Boogie's one that will get mentioned in a few races again. Could potentially go anywhere. I just don't know where the value would be in backing anything at this moment. Like if Galloping de Champs didn't run, then obviously you could argue that Brave Man's Game or Hoy Senior, well, anything in behind really is a shortener and potentially a bit of value now. If Galloping de Champs does come here and Brave Man's Game does come here and a Hoy Senior does come here, I struggle to find the ones at big prices to really take him on. Like I do like Beacon Edge, just liked him as a horse. Whether he shouldn't, but I don't think he should be up to this. So yeah, I don't know how it's going to pan out. Like I think Fury Road will probably come here. Beacon Edge would be another gig in town that could potentially come here. Jungle Boogie could go in any of the trips. Umberton, like I talked about with Capodanno and Statler, you don't know which one of those Willie's going to send here because he's often run more than one in the race. So it's one of those that my fear at the moment is there isn't a move to make right now. I feel like, unfortunately, like it's going to be for many of them at this time of year, you want to sit back and hold tight. Champion Chase. Now here is one where I do have a nice little opinion in there. Right, Shishkin, we knew was going to beat Energumene, let's not lie about it. Energumene didn't really lose a lot in defeat, but let's just not forget that, not that there was any reason to think he'd be better than Shishkin over it, but let's not forget that Energumene had all these favourite things they were talking about Ascot, like going right-handed, all those bits and pieces. And I've got nothing wrong with him going left, but that was all positive for Energumene there, as Shishkin still did him. So yeah, I can't see the reversal of the form personally, but it's obviously not out of the realms of possibility. Not like when people talk about First Flow potentially getting close to him. Like what was that even about? Like there's a difference, isn't there, between your top tier and your middling? And unfortunately, we've just got a load of middling ones that look like they're the best hurdlers in racing, all that sort of stuff. And arguably they are. But if they're like 160s, it's still not really like a monster type of horse. Whereas your Shishkins and your Energumenes are 170s horses. That said, using First Flow as a yardstick, and they did beat him 20. Like I sort of expected that. Like I feel like First Flow's winning the race last year was against horses that went further, horses that were past their best. So I think it flattered him. I think off the back of this performance as well, I know Shishkin's been raised off of it. And it does look like it's a battle between the two of them. And hopefully for once we're just going to get it panning out in the Champion Chase like it should do. But we've had lots of years with Yuduvan going off at 1-4. We've had Defi going off at 1-4. We've had Chacon Poursoir last year going off at 8-13, getting beat. Hopefully this time around it doesn't happen. But tactically, they talked about with Chacon Poursoir that they wanted to go on with him. Now, obviously, Energamy in the race, they did go on with him, and Shishkin caught him. Not saying this will definitely happen, and it obviously depends what happens whether Chacon Poursoir is seen again this season, whether he goes at the Dublin Race Festival, because obviously he lost that toe, and then he's had a muscle issue since. But should Chacon Poursoir run at the Dublin Race Festival, it looks such a weak race. Like, don't disrespect to Grenadine, but it looks such a weak race that I think Chacon Poursoir would win. Again, it's going to depend on the ground and things like that. But Chacon Poursoir was sent off as 8-13 favourite in the Champion Chase last year, which again, yes, it was a weaker Champion Chase, and yes, he didn't win. But I don't think there was many people, as they turned up the hill with the last flight in sight, that didn't expect him to get there. And obviously, he just didn't. So again, the hill, we talked about travel and all those bits and pieces in there. But I just feel like he and Grenadine, similar-ish prices. Like you can get 12 Chacon Poursoir, you've got 16's Grenadine there, and I know he's short in a couple of other bits, sort of the non-runner, no-betty markets. But I wonder whether Chacon Poursoir is going to end up being the muggy each way you bet in the race, because like Shishkin's short enough to back as a single, isn't he? But again, hopefully some people are on previously. I just think Chacon Poursoir is possibly underrated, and you've got. I'm trying to pitch, if I'm thinking of something at a bigger price that could actually win the race. Now, what Chacon did at Sandown, he cannot win this, and what he did in the Champion Chase last year, he can't win this. But I don't know. I just feel like before that, he was the best 2-miler in training, and I don't think he's lost all of that ability fully. We'll see what happens in the Dublin Racing Festival, but that's it. We'll see what happens in the Dublin Racing Festival, and I don't think they're going to overreact to his price. So the point of me bringing all this stuff up is see what happens at the Dublin Racing Festival. See if he runs. If he does run, I fully expect him to spank Grenadine. If he runs in there and he spanks Grenadine, well then get on him. And potentially with these non-run no bet options, you can back him if he's declared, and then like sort of decide what you're going to do with your betting after. Because I'm sure Willie Mullins does want to win the Champion Chase, but I think if Chacon Poursoir runs poor at Dublin Race Festival, they won't come to Cheltenham with him. There's other races to win, and then Energamy will just be the top boy. So sort of spitballing, but he'd be the sort of horse that I'd again want to keep on my radar for potential. But Shishkin wins the Champion Chase, all being well. Where are we now? Not going to do cross country. Champion Bumper. Okay, so this is a good one to talk about, given that Rich Reeky's slipped out about Mercury, isn't he? So American Mike sets the standard. No problem with that. I do like a bumper horse to come from Willie Mullins' yard, and I do like a bumper horse to maybe have shown its best nearer to the festival as opposed to months and months prior. Just the way that I've said it, really. Like Sir Gerhard wasn't with Willie Mullins when he ran that earlier in the season. American Mike's obviously not a Willie Mullins horse, but he's going out there early in the season. Just like it wouldn't be Willie Mullins' typical way to campaign a horse. Now, Facel Vega, he talked about at an events evening, very well bred, ticks a lot of boxes, but we need to see that run again. And I think maybe price-wise is being driven more by the fact of breeding Willie's comments as opposed to what he's done. Like American Mike probably has done more on the course, and they're about the same price. So if that pair, you'd favour American Mike price-wise. Redemption Day might not be the most straightforward type of horse, but I think he's done as much as Facel Vega. Again, it's just not the flashy breeding. So of the two, Facel Vega and Redemption Day, I'd probably prefer Redemption Day if I was looking to have a bet of those pair. And then obviously we have got Mercury that's been mentioned now. The Rich Reeky one could be like a Champagne Fever, could win the whole lot everyone's talking about. So he runs Thursday. People might be watching this after he's already run, but again, he's one of those that people are backing him, get him on your slip. You've got the chance to cash out after. Sort of kind of no harm in doing it. And you'd think that this would be the run, and then it would be straight to Cheltenham with him if he was going to go that way. So that's sort of it, isn't it? We're going to see, hopefully, well, we don't know. We might see American Mike, Facel Vega, Redemption Day. We might see the whole trio run at the Dublin Race Festival. But again, it's going to depend on ground, and there are other options for these horses to go in despite the status. But people are going to want to pick up those big prize money there, especially Willie Mullins. So I expect to see them lot run. But it's an obvious one. I think most people have seen it, but it's worth mentioning just in case people haven't been keeping an eye on comments and things that are coming out. But you'll see the blue on the odds checker, and that's the reason why. So the Turners come out, the Bob Ollingers going straight to the festival now. Like I do get why he's the price that he is, because there's nothing to beat as far as I'm concerned. But I still don't like him over fences. I just don't think he's ever going to be as good over fences. And like, we've got people now talking about Chantry House potentially for like a Gold Cup, and then obviously Fuse of Raffles was in there, and like they're nice enough horses. But the Envoy race last year, and again, I'm not using this as like a comparison because Envoy got beat, but there was something about Envoy that just didn't sit right. Like, I like a horse to have been challenged, all that sort of stuff. So Bob Bollinger ticks that box. He jumped under pressure. He did everything. He's improved from that first jump to the first race to the second race. So he's doing everything that he can do, and he should be better on some nicer ground. I'm just not overly sold on him being as good over fences. And the point of bringing up the Envoy references, it was one for Envoy, wasn't it, before the race had even gone off? Like, as much as the depth now still doesn't look that great, like Chantry House be the only one in there, but there was a few horses that gave him a run. Like, it's not like Envoy ran okay and got beat by a couple. Like, Monkfish ran poor in the RSA and still managed to win the race. So I just don't think there are really too many really bad races at Cheltenham. I'm really, really, really keen to find out where Jungle Boogie's going to go, man, because I fancied him as a wild price outsider for the Ballymore last year. Didn't come over. With that said, he was a 40-1 poke in the Ballymore when we suggested him as like our mid-season view. Bob Ollinger was about a 3 or 4-1 poke at that point. You see the gulf in price between the two of them, but Jungle Boogie has come out and basically shit home in a chase, isn't he? So he's got all the entries: Arkle, RSA, a National Hunt Chase, and this. I said it before and I'll say it again. He reminds me a bit of like a Black Hercules. Like, you could see him going over any trip. We don't know where he'll go, but I'd like to see him come here. And again, a lot's going to happen depend on where Galopin Des Champs goes, but Galopin Des Champs should be going for the RSA as far as we're concerned. So as it stands in there, there's not really much depth that's in behind there. One thing that is very much worth stating is that Paul Nicholls said that there is no rush to step Brave Man's Game up to 3 miles at Cheltenham this season. Like, I think there was I'll see if I can dig out the quote, whatever, but it was at Cheltenham this season. So the King George is the long-term aim for the horse, and obviously he won the Feltham this year at Kempton. But I see no reason why Paul Nicholls, if his connections want to get a run at Cheltenham and they want to get the experience show and they want to get a win at Cheltenham, I have no logical reason in my head why he would not run him in this race. And obviously he'll keep his cards close to his chest and he'll save himself till nearer the time. But Brave Man's Game would beat Bob Ollinger over this trip, as far as I'm concerned. Like, I think most of us aren't overly sold that Brave Man's Game wants the 3 miles, like a strong and a hard 3 miles, like an RSA is. I think he'd win this, and I don't even know if that is a correct price with Sky Bet, whether it actually is 16s or not. I mean, we could go on there now and have a look, couldn't we? But I mean, if he is 16s and people haven't got a bit of cover on him, I mean, I would. Especially the people that are knee-deep in Bob Ollinger, because let's be honest about this. You're looking for prices and you're looking for horses that won prestigious races. He's won a Feltham. If he came here, which, again, like I say, there'll be a conversation between the owner and the trainers, or the owners and the trainer, but is it a terrible idea, especially at that price? There he is. He's 16s on there, and he was 7s before that. So, I mean, I know that possibly indicates he's not going to come in, but like, surely 16s is worth a sniff of a poke on him if you're backing on other bits. And I know we could see exchange. You'll probably better get a little bit bigger on there, but worse bets to be had maybe. And I know we can't cash it with Sky Bet, so maybe you could look at the exchange, but that's too big a price. And I think when we looked at this market before, he wouldn't have been that. He would have been shorter. So again, he might not come here for this. Again, it depends how much people have got like money riding on them or whatever, or how much the things are going for, but I don't know. Let's just say you've got a few quid going on Bob Ollinger and you could stick a tenner on Brave Man's Game at 20s on the exchange or 16s there, and you get yourself 170 quid back as a saver. If he does go in this race, he'll be 7-2, 4-1, won't he, in behind? And then all of a sudden you talk about putting 40, 50 quid as a cover. So again, just thinking in my head, they're the sort of ways that I play it. A lot depends on Galopin Des Champs. I think they're going to maybe try and avoid him. And obviously Paul Nicholls, when they talked about it and made that comment, was before Galopin Des Champs did what he did. So if he does come to Cheltenham, I would hope to see that they probably think we might as well run him over the 3 miler to do it in there. But then I don't know. I just think that's the way that looking at this race and seeing this market as it stands today, it's worth thinking about. And obviously, I'm not saying he's definitely going to go there, but you got to think of the horses. If they ran in the races that have their best chance, where would he go? His best chance would be in this race against Bob Ollinger, I think. That Haydock run where he beat Itchy Feet was very, very impressive to my eye. So, yeah, that would be a thought process there. Ryanair, how many times have we done Ryanair where I've said Allaho was a bad price and then he just keeps winning and keeps getting better and better and better. That'll be another slight touch on the Chacon Poursoir thing, which is loosely connected. I know different horse now, but he beat Allaho comfortably at Punchestown last year, didn't he? And again, I know it's over a different trip, but what Allaho's done since, it's not like he beat a bad horse, given that Allaho did what he did in the Ryanair last year and then got beat by him at Punchestown. It's not like he regressed. I know people say like he needs his runs and things, but Allaho should be winning this. There is no two ways about it. I still don't 100% trust him. Like, I still feel like he can throw in a subpar performance. And maybe at that sort of price, I don't really want to find out. But look, anyone that's gotten him early and didn't listen to me was bang on in the right choice, to be fair. So I don't think there's too much more. And that's always a race, isn't it, where people defect from other trips. So we don't know till nearer the time. We have got the Cotswold Chase coming up. We've also got the Galmoy Hurdle coming up on Thursday. So again, depending when you watch it, one or both of those races may have run. It's hard to get away from the ones at the head of the market, really, isn't it? Like, if you look at the top four, Classical Dream, Champ, Florin Porter, Time Hill, there's probably bits you could crab about all the horses. Less so, I think, with Classical Dream than anything else. But you could see any one of those four winning it. Now, if we start to drip a little bit further down the market, could we really see Sporting John winning it? Well, wouldn't be the biggest shock in the world, but probably not. And then you start to dip further and further down, and there's just horses that can't do it. Paisley being at 33s, I'm sure, will lure a few people in for the sentimental reasons, but not having it. McFabulous, Paul Nicholls has talked about him. It could be a great each-way bet for a Stairs Hurdle. Well, again, we talk about those top four. Is McFabulous really going to mix it with them? Don't know. Like, I really don't know. Mellon, they're talking about doing different stuff with him. Wouldn't be opposed to seeing him come in this particular race, but we're talking about things that we could think about having a bet with, and there isn't really anything in there. Now, I know, let's imagine this week goes as planned. Classical Dream dots up, and then Champ goes and wins the Cotswold. So I keep saying the Cotswold Chase, didn't I? The Cleve Hurdle. Champ goes and bots up in there. What's going to happen to their prices? Well, they're probably going to contract slightly. That's it. Like, Classical Dream is going to be favourite and Champ's going to be second favourite, unless Classical Dream flops in the Galmoy Hurdle, which I can't see happening. Again, people will be on some of these horses at bigger prices, so you're sitting pretty. It's one, I think, to wait till nearer the time again to see conditions and how the shake-up of the race is going to go. Don't need to be sticking any more money on races like that right now, I don't think. Mares Novices Hurdle, I will quickly open it up, but it's not really one that I want to talk about too much. Again, it'll be one to leave nearer the time, I think. When we did it with Daryl and Jamie, Allegory Devassi was one that Daryl was fairly keen on, but again, we need to see what happens. Dino Blue ran after that, had an entry, we could have mentioned that. Like, she was real good. Like, I felt a bit bad for not mentioning her. I love Statuaire. I think she's too big a price. Like, I think she's the Mares Novice Hurdle winner, and I still think at tens is way too big a price, to be honest with you. So I'd still stick with that same sort of thought process. I'd say that Dino Blue looks really, really good. I think Statuaire's probably already got the form in the book and just looks like the one to win the race for me. Allegory Devassi obviously has got the potential, but there's just some bits of the French stuff that don't work out so well for me on that one. So we'll leave that as that is. Again, it's not really too much outside information, and I think we can just sort of leave that race till nearer the time, see who actually goes there. Yes, some prices may contract, but I think that information will be worth the price difference. Triumph Hurdle betting, we have got Spring Juvenile over in Ireland to be run, and we have got the Finesse Hurdle being run at Trials Day at Cheltenham. I talked about Vauban and Pied Piper. I think the pair of those could have a chance in a Triumph. We do need to consider the fact that Fildor and Pied Piper, despite them being different horses, maybe they would be suited by different ground, but they are the same connection. So who knows? I wonder whether this weekend, if Pied Piper was to run at Cheltenham, which I don't know, if he did, I wouldn't be surprised if he didn't run very well. Just conveniently to get an easier mark for a Boodles. But there we are. I hope Vauban and Fildor go against each other at Dublin Race Festival, but again, with the ground probably being quick, maybe Fildor won't even be able to run. So I suspect that Vauban's price is just going to continue to contract. And I like him as a horse. Porticello for Gary Moore jumped like an absolute piano first time up. Has progressed, but again, wouldn't be the absolute worst one in there. This is kind of a slight allude to what I'll talk about on Thursday when we do the live preview for the Trials Day stuff. But in turn to Savola, 25s and even the 20s and dots that are about, like, I think is too big a price. Like, I wouldn't say that I'd be confident that this horse can go real close to Triumph, because I do think there's other horses like your Vauban, potentially even Fildor, that could just be streets better. But I do think this in turn to Savola has that form behind In This World, which unfortunately isn't going to race, and that was Jamie's fancy. Has got some form that ties in with Night Salute as well at Cheltenham. So I just think this horse is potentially being a little bit underappreciated given the price that he's quoted at here. And after Saturday, things could change. So I wouldn't be opposed to people having a look twice at In Turn to Savola, especially if the field cuts up a little bit. That SEO for Paul Nicholls. I hate juveniles that have hoods first time up. Like I worry about them in terms of temperament and stuff, but won really, really nicely. I don't think the depth of the race is massive. You could probably put him around about 120, 125, I think. So needs to improve from that, or potentially is just a Boodles horse. So I don't know. I feel like In Turn to Savola could do it again at Cheltenham, and he won nicely there in December as well. It's difficult to forget that, but yeah, well, that's probably enough talking about for the Triumph. Spud still looks really, really open. I'm really interested to find out what they do with Classic Getaway. There's the Mercedes-Benz Novice Hurdle at Clonmel where Alaho and Melerindo ran against each other. I'm hoping he's going to get an entry in there, but I don't know. Maybe they'll take a bit of a quiet route with him this season, given he's the novice I was talking about that they threw into Open Company first time up. So again, one of those horses, I'm just mentioning it. Whether he ends up this way or not, I don't know. But Mercedes-Benz Novice Hurdle at Clonmel. Keep an eye on the entries that go in for there, because whatever wins, that's going to end up being very well fancied for this, despite how well it might work out form-wise or anything like that. But I think something will go there as a bit of a clue. Yeah, we'll just have to see. We don't really know where most of these horses are going. I like Grand Jury. He could go Ballymore, he could come here, but I would prefer him to come here. And I mentioned that in the other preview before as well. So I'd be I'll be leaving this to the day. And we know with the big wild prices you've had now at Bartlett, you can save yourself to the day. I know we want to get on the value prices, but there we are. Gold Cup. It's always hard, isn't it? Always hard. It's arguably the most competitive race of the festival every single year anyway. I don't think there's any chunks of value that come out. There'll be some wise guy stuff when some previews go out, so keep an eye on what people say and if people can make some good cases for stuff. You can see there the Ahoy Senior angle, because they could just go straight to Open Company and run him in the Gold Cup because he looks like he wants a trip. He's 25 to 1 on 1-0 bet. Betfred have also got it 25, so he's priced up accordingly for it. Whereas you look back at that My Mate Mozzie one, he was 66 top price, non-1-0 bet anyway. So that was the only reason why I mentioned him. But yeah, if a Hoy Senior was a 50 or a 66 to 1 poke, non-1-0 bet, you'd be tempted to have a little teeny weeny poke on that. But yeah, quick and short for the Gold Cup, I think is probably the easiest way to do it. We'll leave your opinions to yourselves there. Hunter Chase, we do need to talk about that one because I think they pushed Billaway out. Strangely. Yeah, 6's Billaway, I think's fair price. One thing to talk about, I love David Maxwell, and I love the fact that he gets some shit as well, to be honest with you. But I fancy Bob and Co for this. He did beat Billaway at Punchestown as well, didn't he, last season? And there's no doubt that David Maxwell is improving every year that he rides, and I think his actual progression is going to be so much faster. Well, maybe not so much faster, but it's going to be so much more than your regular jockeys that have been riding from youth and then just getting chances on better horses. I think he's progressing. This could be the time to turn. And I feel like this would be one of a maybe a long list because he's a very ambitious person. But I'd say that this is a race that he really wants to win. And I think Bob and Co could do it. So I think Billaway 6 to 1 is tempting because he goes so well in the race, and Willie Mullins is always so open about how he goes. Yeah. I mean, there's not much more really to say on there, but they're the sort of horses you sort of want to get on your team sheet, don't you? And they're only going to get short on the day. But again, it's such a pish race that it doesn't matter too much anyway. Mares Chase, we talked about this one in our mid-season preview, funny enough, because we talked about pretty much every race bar the handicaps. Constantine, I still think she's monster prize. I still think she absolutely bolts up. Never trust the girls, but Constantine to win. So I'm going to call this short now. I don't think it's short. I think it's still a long one. There will be a live preview Thursday going out for Cheltenham Trials Day. There's lots more content that's coming up, but this will be the last of the Antepost angles because next up we'll be talking about previews to the festival as proper, and we're getting away from the fact of it being proper Antepost now. I know we've still got a couple of months to go, but lots of the markets have already been formed. There are still some options to get involved in a few races, but that's it from me. So be lucky and see you soon.